Who goes there?
The Teleport Media Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Teleport Media Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Wall. In this episode, I am privileged to host my professional colleague, Jacqueline Bryk, for an interview and experience of her latest solo TTRPG creation, Bear Witness, available later this month from Plus One RPG Zine Club. See the links in the show notes for details. This horror TTRPG is an exploration of the themes at the center of the French horror film Martyrs. Jacqueline and I also talk about suburban horror, in a continuation of the theme from my previous episode. You might notice a few differences in the audio quality of this episode. Some of this is due to the app I use to record my interview with Jacqueline over Discord, and some of it is due to recent changes I've made to my audio setup and recording space. I'm a self-taught podcaster, and the world of audio tools and technology is still very new to me. So please bear with me as I figure a few things out with some good old-fashioned trial and error. Now, on with the show. Welcome to the Teleport Media Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Wall, and today I am pleased to present the first guest on the Teleport Media Podcast. We have Jacqueline Bryk with us.
Hello.
Hi, Jacqueline. So tell us about who you are. Tell us about what you do in the gaming industry.
My name is Jacqueline Bryk, Jax Romana on the internet. I am a tabletop doer of things. I am an editor, a designer, a freelance writer. I designed a tarot deck once that got stuck in development hell. But the reason I am on Teleport Media today, number one, is I am the English language editor for Kult Divinity Lost. Anything you see that Helmgast has published for Kult Divinity Lost has passed through my hands at some point or another. And I am also the author of an upcoming solo RPG with Plus One Zine Club called Bear Witness, which is based off of the 2008 new French extremity film Martyrs by Pascal Laugier.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And you have quite a few credits to your name. I mean, that was something that I was just really impressed when I actually saw your resume. I mean, there are books on my shelves that you were involved with. I mean, the new edition of Changeling, for example, some of the new editions, some of the new material for World of Darkness Vampire in particular, you were involved with. Were you involved primarily there as an editor, or were you involved as a writer?
So with anything published by Onyx Path Publishing, I was a freelance writer.
Okay.
Changeling the Lost in particular was something I was super privileged to write on because I picked up Changeling the Lost first edition when I was in college, and without exaggerating, that game line saved my life. So being able to work on second edition was a dream project, and I have credits on, I believe, every single Changeling the Lost second edition book except for the novella compilation, or the short story compilation, rather. But I do not work as an editor for Onyx Path. I am primarily a writer with them. I've written on Exalted. I've written on Vampire the Requiem, second edition. I wrote on They Came From Beneath the Sea. I actually just finished doing some work on a Deviant supplement for Storyteller's Vault. I was on the Deviant core book. I have some credits on Curseborn. So yeah.
Yeah, your resume astonished me. It was kind of like I bumped into you at this convention, this online convention for Cult, and I didn't really realize who I was talking to. So I thought that, since we got along, I figured ask you on the show and talk a little bit about some subjects that are near and dear to both of us. Just one more thing I did want to clarify here in terms of your resume and involvement. You have some writing credits with Kult Divinity Lost as well, right?
I do, yes.
Yeah, there were a couple of scenarios. You developed one of the early scenarios. Could you
I developed
remind
2,
me?
actually.
You developed two of them.
Um,
Okay, which ones were they?
mhm. So I wrote La Cena, which is
Hmm.
about Cuban immigration during the Miami flights in the 60s and 70s, and it's about a dream creature taking the place of a lost son of a very capitalist Cuban patriarch in Miami. And the second one is And the Rocket's Red Glare, which is about interns in Trump Tower the night of the 2016 election being called.
Okay, and we'll definitely circle back to those particular issues. For
Mhm.
now, though, let's talk about Bear Witness a little bit because
Okay.
this is the project that you handed me. You asked me to do a review of it. I recently completed a full playthrough of it.
Oh, that's
Went
exciting.
through, yeah, no, I went and created a complete story. The cool thing about this, admittedly, I came into this situation a little bit of a skeptic because I had not had favorable kind of experiences with solo RPGs up until this point.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, it felt everything that I'd kind of played around with. I wouldn't say even played. I just played around with. Felt like a choose your own adventure book, but with dice rolls.
Mhm.
And I can't say why, but for some reason I wasn't into it. You know, that was kind of the reason why I picked up role playing games in the first place, rather than kind of the choose your own adventure kind of stuff when I was a kid, was
Sure.
because, well, I wanted to create my own stories. You needed friends to go along with that, and so you found, at least when I was, fifth grade, sixth grade, you found some buddies you kind of got along with, and we played D&D at recess. That's kind of what we did. Roll dice in the corner of the basketball court and try and stay out of the way of the bullies, that kind of thing. But this was more, I found this to be more of a journaling kind of exercise. And I think I stuck into it because it felt like a creative exercise that you were
Mhm.
asking me to walk through. And and so just to kind of get into my actual questions here, um, tell me how this game came together. I mean, we know that it has to do with Pascal Laugier's Martyrs of 2008. And I don't want to, again, kind of spoil the nature of the game because, I mean, part of it is just kind of the excitement of experiencing it.
Mhm.
But tell me how you got this idea, where this came from, why you did this, what drove you to create this game?
So, going back a little bit, I am close with the guys at Plus One. I really like what they do. I think Zine Club is phenomenal. I write and publish a lot of like independently published zines. Like, I'm a huge believer in the art form of the zine, whether you are getting something semi professionally or professionally printed, or you're printing it on a computer at your office job or at home and just stapling it, or you're folding a piece of paper into 8 pages and you're writing on it with a pencil and you're leaving it somewhere. Like, zines have so much life and flow to them. And so when the guys at Plus One RPG asked me to submit something for Zine Club, I was like, yeah, absolutely. I've been wanting to get in on the Zine Club roster for a while, so this was the perfect opportunity to do something a little weird. The thing that actually inspired me to make a game based on Martyrs, actually, let me go back a little bit. The reason I watched Martyrs at all was due to a podcast that was briefly put on by my friend Chris Kitts called Shitlist, which is basically it's Shitlist but with all the vowels taken out. You can still find it on Spotify if you want. It's a very good podcast, but basically it's him and his friend Donna Helmuth talking about like really extreme or weird movies as though they are telling a campfire story and then discussing it. And it was a very accessible and easy way to get into extreme and disturbing cinema. And put a pin in that because I get kind of pissy around people describing things as like, oh, extreme or disturbing cinema, because Had Martyrs only ever been described to me like that, I would never have watched it. But something that is very near and dear to my heart, and we'll pull a pin out of talking about the world in Chronicles of Darkness here, is the Nefandi from Mage the Ascension. Because the Nefandi are so often written as like, well, their souls are turned inside out, so they are by necessity horrible people, and they're always going to do the most evil thing in the room. But then you look at them, and some Nefandi were just born with an inside-out soul, and some Nefandi were shoved into the portal that turns your soul inside out, and had the choice of either having their soul shredded or turned inside out, and chose the latter. And something that interests me a lot about Nefandi is the idea of what you do when you know you're already damned.
Okay.
Right? Like, you know this is going to end badly, but you have all this time between you and that damnation. What are you going to do? And
Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways that opens up a lot of room for experimentation. Because, well, if everything is just going to end horribly, then why not try something new? Because the worst thing has already happened.
Okay.
And to me, as someone with OCD and CPTSD, that message resonates a lot because I spend
Mhm.
so much time in my own head, living in what someone called the future past, basically, or the
Mhm.
future present of what if this horrible thing will happen, so I will behave as if it has already happened, but I'm also waiting for it to happen. It's that horrible state of suspense.
Mhm.
And something that Pascal Laugier said about Martyrs is it's taken place in a world where evil has already won.
Okay.
And that just clicked on something in my brain because during
Mhm.
Martyrs, we follow Anna and oh my gosh, I'm forgetting her friend's name now and I feel awful.
I'm
Could you
afraid
look
you're
that
on
up?
your own here. I'm not overly
Oh,
familiar with the movie, but
dang.
I will look it up
Um,
for you real quick here.
okay, don't cut this. It's very important to the game design process that we're looking stuff up as we talk about it.
No, it's yeah,
Um,
absolutely. This is I mean, these
we're
shows, as far as I'm concerned, can go on as long as they need to and can have these kind of
we call this
um
live research.
yeah, so let's see here. Our cast was we have Anna and was it Lucy?
Yes. So
Yeah.
Lucy is our little girl at the beginning who
Mhm.
should we talk about the plot of Martyrs maybe?
If you want to, go right ahead because I mean this sounds like it's critical to the game that you created. I mean, this is an homage. I mean, this is
It is very much an homage. So
yeah.
I'm going to tell you a little bit about the plot of Martyrs and then you
Okay.
tell me if you felt watching Martyrs would have given you a better understanding of the game.
Okay. To be clear, I am familiar with Martyrs in that I have heard about it discussed on podcasts. The good friends of
Mhm.
Jackson Elias reviewed it at one point.
Mhm.
And I decided for me personally, it was an interesting concept, but not something that I was keen to see, at least at the time. But let's
That's
carry on with what you were saying. We'll pick up from
mm.
there.
Yeah, you feel about Martyrs very much the way I feel about Sallow, which is something we can discuss later because I actually have an upcoming project that I'm doing as an homage specifically to the filming of Sallow, not to Sallow itself, but to the filming process of Sallow, which I think will be very fun. So, Martyrs is a movie that begins with as many horror movies I dislike begin with a tortured little girl running through the streets screaming her head off, and there's news reports, and oh my god, she was horribly tortured, and oh my god, look at these torture chambers, and she gets placed into a group home. The little girl is Lucy. She gets placed into a group home with a girl named Anna, and they become quick friends. And Anna and Lucy develop this very codependent relationship, and you see that Anna is trying to protect Lucy from something that is coming after Lucy. And we think this is going to be a supernatural horror movie. A couple years later, by a couple, I mean like roughly a decade and a half, we zoom into this beautiful, wealthy home in the French countryside. And we see a little girl being chased around the house, and we think, oh, terrible things are happening. We realize She's just being chased by her brother because she stole a note. I believe she stole a note that her brother wrote to his crush. And this family of one little girl, one teenage boy, one mom, one dad sit down to breakfast in this beautiful house in the French countryside. There's a knock on the door. The door opens. Lucy immediately blasts the head off the person who's opening the door with a shotgun.
Okay.
And we're like, what the fuck is going on? Gore ensues. Lucy kills the entire family. Anna comes in going, what the hell have you done? Lucy's like, it was here. I was tortured here. These people were involved. And she's like, I just thought you were going to talk to them. I brought you here because I thought we were going to investigate. What have you done? Anna tries to help the mother, who is not quite dead, escape. Lucy finds out. Lucy kills the mother. Lucy then has a series of hallucinations that causes her to kill herself. Anna is deeply upset, which we would be in any situation. And it is in this state of grieving that Anna finds the door to the sub-basement hidden in the built-in bar in the family's living room. And we enter Act 2 of the movie, in which Anna explores the sub-basement, finds another tortured woman with a blindfold bolted over her eyes, finds a bunch of photos of tortured women backlit so that we can see the grief in their eyes, finds all sorts of things, gives the woman, we call her Sarah, gives her a bath, tries to take care of her, tries to mitigate some of the damage done to her. Anna, as we know, is a caretaker, is very much someone who tries to make sure the lives of people around her are better, even with as little as she can. Sarah panics, has the same freak out that Lucy does, but then gets shot. And we enter Act 3 of the movie. As the cult that has been doing, the rest of the cult, or at least part of the cult that has been doing all of this, comes in. We are introduced to Mademoiselle, who is an older lady in a turban, we never learn her name, who explains that marginalized young women, specifically the suffering and near-death experiences of marginalized young women, is the key to seeing the afterlife. And this cult has been doing this for years. They've been at least a century, because they have records dating back to like the Armenian genocide, at least. And they're going to do that to Anna. And then they do. This part of the movie is actually fairly difficult to watch, not because it is torture porn as such. Like, if you've seen Hostel or the later Saws, you know what I mean. That very like elaborate, like almost decadent like torture porn with a lot of like spikes and grates and weird looking contraptions. It's very much not that. It is very much beating with fists. It is that dull thud of a fist against your chest for the rest of the movie. She's learning to she's trying to stay grounded. Sounds so banal here, but it's true. She's trying to like retain any sense of personhood.
Yeah.
She doesn't fail exactly, but she gets to the point where she can accept that this is happening to her. Where Anna can accept that this is happening to her. And we never learn the names of the people who are doing this to her, by the way. She has some hallucinated conversations with Lucy that actually really help her with this. After her last conversation with Lucy, we find out that she has this look in her eyes that means she's close. Cut to a scene where Anna is being skinned alive. That's like the one sort of Saw moment in the film, because she's put into this weird gyroscopic contraption to do that. It's fine. It's basically based off like a same box you'd skin an animal in if you were doing it in a factory.
Right.
So like it's more forgivable, in my opinion. And then she's put into this jelly substance, and the cult is all like, oh my god, we're going to listen to her testimony. And Mademoiselle listens down to hear her speak, and then she's going to present, but she chooses to shoot herself instead. And the film ends with the definition for martyrs, or for the word martyr, typed across the screen, which is witness, which is why the game is called Bear Witness. Because instead of playing someone like Anna or Lucy or Sarah, you are specifically playing somebody who is a high-ranking member of this cult, The cult has no name. The cult has no theology because why do you need a name and a theology when you're united by this singular purpose? And you are a spouse, you have kids, you have a home in the suburbs, you have hobbies, and also you have a girl in your basement.
Yeah, and I mean, I went through the character creation process. I definitely tried to step outside what I felt was kind of my normal sort of experience. I went for more of an MBA type figure, somebody who was like a business executive
Mhm.
or kind of a finance type person. Very, very different from my personal route. But similar to people I knew growing up, so then that way I would be able to journal kind of my experiences as I rolled dice and pulled cards through through those perspective. I could remember things because I grew up in a family business environment, so I had these kind of people around me all the time, and I kind of utilized that, and I even utilized kind of remembering what it was like to my parents when I was very young because I looked cute in a suit. They took me to a couple of shareholders meetings,
Oh
and they
my
were at a
god.
country club and stuff like that, and
Mhm.
parade your little 4-year-old son around in his little suit, and it was cute. It was very boring, but
Right.
but I got all the Shirley Temples I could drink, so it was kind of nice.
Oh, hell
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so I kind of remembering these people, I kind of utilized that as kind of my starting point, and I tried to create a very vapid character who was very kind of obsessed with himself and obsessed with his wife physically, and also
Mhm.
obsessed with his legacy through both his daughter and his son. And yeah, I found what I really enjoyed and what definitely isn't in the movie Martyrs is that you brought to the table with this homage is the daily living
Mhm.
of suburban life. The I mean, I gravitated toward it because it was kind of like the movie American Beauty, in that there's all this effort
Mhm.
to maintain the facade that you're doing, and then there's the undercurrent. There's beneath it as well. And I really thought that kind of captured the suburban gothic. It was kind of perfect in the moment that it grabbed me because I was writing and doing a podcast about the suburban gothic.
Mhm. So I would actually only I appreciate that you enjoyed it, and I definitely want to hear more about your playthrough because
Hmm.
I that's fun for me. I actually only very slightly disagree in that we do not see the daily living of suburbia in Martyrs because we do have that whole first act where we're seeing this family sitting down to breakfast, and even as they're dying, we're sort of seeing parts of their daily life around them, and even
Ah,
the
okay.
bar. Yeah, and even the bar in which we find the, door to the sub-basement is, like, very well stocked, like, we learn so even though the house is, kind of showpiecey almost,
Hmm.
we do see, like, this very idealized suburban life,
Okay.
as part of this movie. Now, granted, it is idealized deliberately because it's supposed to be that, like, plasticky, vapid suburban lifestyle because once
Hmm.
again, in a world where evil has already won and these people have decided that what they are doing in that world is they are going to be the perfect little nuclear family.
Yeah. This is a movie I'm only indirectly familiar with still at this stage.
Mhm.
I haven't really gotten into a podcast regarding kind of my perceptions of horror cinema and what I enjoy and what I don't enjoy
Mhm.
regarding it. But yeah, what I love about explorations like this is seeing this kind of thing through another person's eyes. You explaining this to me helps me kind of understand it in a way that I might not ordinarily.
Mhm.
I think that's kind of what I'm getting at there. Can I ask you another question? I just
Please.
step
You
in
could
here
even
with
ask
another.
me a
Okay.
question after that question.
Well, I've got a few. But I wanted to kind of change the subject a little bit to look at, in general, solo games. And I
Mhm.
wanted to give you really kind of an opportunity, because I mean, you created this, you put this out there and put it in the hands of someone like me who was very hesitant regarding
Mhm.
solo games due to past experiences. I'd like to give you kind of the soapbox to be able to advocate for solo games, if that's something that you would like to
Yeah.
do.
So, something I think a lot of us went through during COVID is this sort of trauma of being around people and sort of forgetting how to be around people. And I know a lot of gaming circles suffered for that. We got the bean theory of bean soup. We've got COVID pauses in the hallway where someone will, stop to look down at their phone, completely forgetting that there are people around and near them who might be affected that they're stopping in doorways or hallways. And solo games, I think, are sort of a way to gently reconnect with yourself as a person rather than as a maybe necessarily a content producer because yeah, you can do solo games for content. A lot of people do. That's fine. If somebody wants to do an actual play of Bear Witness, I'm not going to stop them. And in fact, I have a couple of very cool actual play creators lined up to do that, and I'm very excited for that. But it is a way to sort of be able to have that same creative, fulfilling experience without having to worry about schedules necessarily. Like, you're always gonna have that worry of, like, "Okay, am I gonna have time to play this?" It or if you're living with someone else, "How do I fit this into my schedule around shared chores or whatever?" But you're not scheduling a game night, and with all of the, baggage that can come with that,
Yeah.
and it's also a great thing to talk to other people about because your playthrough of this solo game is gonna look different than someone else's. And for me, as a designer, it's really fun to see what people will do with a solo game that I put out there because I know what I think a playthrough will look like, but seeing other people's playthroughs is always really, really exciting to me. And this is not to say that I think you should play solo games instead of other games. I still write and read and play group games and all sorts of stuff, but solo games as an art form are really, really fun for me to design because they allow me to get very weird and deep and introspective with the sort of stuff that I'm putting on a page without necessarily worrying about how adding in another player will interact with that. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And actually, while you were doing that, I apologize, but I was trying to subtly send you my playthrough of Bear
Oh, cool.
Witness, so we could go
Where is
over it.
it?
If I can, I just send you the Microsoft Word file. Is that okay?
Yes, you can. Please do. I would love
Okay.
that.
So yeah, I would say that I did a very kind of bare bones
Mhm.
journaling exercise here.
Okay.
It's not terribly detailed, kind of a paragraph or so for each entry. And while we're kind of looking at that, I was curious about this just because I tend to be more of a story writer and I tend not to worry about the system that I'm writing for so much, at least not at the beginning. If I have an idea, I want to jot down the idea. The system can come later. But
Mhm.
with this, okay, did you craft this system or did you find it somewhere? The whole notion of kind of playing cards in a couple of different decks, and then having a 20-sided die to roll as well. I'm just curious where that came from. Was that from your imagination, or is that something like Powered by the Apocalypse that's out there and available?
So, one of the first solo games I wrote, it is not the first solo game, but, one of them is,
Hmm.
a game called I Have No Railgun and I Must Scream,
Okay.
which is about being the sibling of a mech pilot during an apocalyptic mech war.
Okay.
And I was kind of futzing around with that because I really wanted to have a system that allowed you to do daily life stuff while also having these big overarching world events that would affect
Mhm.
you. And I'd seen, like, solo games that had playing card mechanics and tarot card mechanics, like,
Mhm.
draw and this should inspire whatever it is you're writing. So I sort of built from there, and in Railgun, the the suits are all different, like, themes of newspaper headlines. So,
Right?
like, diamonds is economic, hearts is social, etc., etc.
Mhm.
I have done some work with the Wretched and Alone system, which is a solo game SRD based on the game The Wretched, which is an aliens like dying spaceship that you're having to survive on while something is hunting you. That one uses a Jenga tower and a couple
Hmm.
of other little, like, a couple of other dice and a couple of other things. This is not, strictly speaking, a Wretched and Alone game. It's like, it does take a little bit of inspiration from the card pull, but saying that it's a Wretched and Alone game because it has cards is like saying that a game is D&D because it has dice. I
Right.
definitely did take inspiration from the Wretched and Alone SRD for this game.
Mhm.
Um, but the system as it stands in this game is a repurposed system that I used from I Have No Railgun and I'm a Scream.
Okay. I mean, from my perspective, this is all fairly new to me. So, I
Mhm.
mean, also the idea of using a Jenga tower in the midst of a solo game is kind of fun. I almost want to see if you could incorporate that into a group TTRPG.
I mean, if you haven't
Hmm?
played Dread is the classic group TTRPG that uses a Jenga tower as the main resolution
Really?
mechanic, so
Okay.
it's very
Yeah.
good.
No, I'm finding, I mean, especially as I kind of open up and start speaking to other people that are interested in game design and stuff like that. There's a lot of variation out there that I'm not familiar with. That I've kind of been
Mhm.
in sort of this limited corner of what is variation, and mostly it centers around kind of percentile systems and D20 type systems and
Mhm.
D6 systems, those sort of things. So, but I mean, there's lots of different ideas out there. That sounds very novel to me. I'd be interested in playing with that.
Wait until you hear that Dread uses BuzzFeed style personality quizzes as character sheets.
Cool too. Yeah, that is not wanting to do a commercial for Dread, but it sounds interesting. I'm gonna
Mhm.
look into it then. So yeah, I just did. Okay, so you have my playthrough up there, so you can kind of see my first
Mhm.
page is just kind of a few notes on my character. I wanted to find kind of a very, I don't know, a very New England sounding name. So I ended up going with this guy's Robert Peel, but he calls himself by his middle name Mason.
Mason, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd recently watched, what was it, Knives Out, where there was a similar kind
Mm.
of wealthy character. I think it played by Chris Evans, I think, who does kind of a similar thing. If you know him personally, you get to call him by his middle name, that sort of thing. It's kind of like
Mhm.
people at the country club having the name Muffy. And from there, I started doing kind of these shorts. Some of them got longer depending on what would happen. But I started doing these card pulls and rolls and ended up with a collection of events. I would say actually, I mean, for me, it almost felt like the suburban life was more at the center of it, at least in a lot of parts. And it very much became a story of this man struggling to relate to his wife and have kind of a meaningful commitment. And he ends up having an emotional attachment to the victim in his sub basement.
Mhm.
And the end result is kind of a I wanted a bad ending for him because I mean he's a bad guy throughout. And the best ending that I could come up with based on the cards that I pulled was the idea that okay, he falls out of love with his wife, falls in love with the victim, and then the victim achieves transcendence and is taken away from him. So he's effectively left with nothing.
Yeah, I'm reading that. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm reading the last one. Wow.
Yeah, and admittedly, I mean, part of
Wow.
I mean, the other thing with solo games, of course, and I mean, I mean, you are the creator, so I'll confess this to you as well, is I fudged a little bit because I pulled a Joker way faster than I intended to, way faster than I wanted to. I wanted to have, another few rounds.
Mm-hmm.
So I set aside the Joker ending and said, okay, that's going to be the ending, but I'll go back and do another 5 rounds and see what happens because I wanted this story to be enriched a little bit. I didn't just want it to end suddenly because I misshuffled the face card deck.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it became more about kind of a journaling exercise than anything else. I was creating a story. And I guess in the back of my mind, what I was thinking about was to kind of get over the hump of being able to do this, of stepping into this space that was unfamiliar to me. I said to myself, okay, one of my techniques often with when people say things like it would be great to have a game that was like Midsummer.
Mm-hmm.
And what my response to that typically is, okay, that isn't really suitable for an investigative horror game because the problem is everybody's seen the same film that you have. So they're going to know to avoid doing the things that are going to get them in trouble. But one thing that you can do with any film that you see that inspires you is to play investigatively with the aftermath of it.
Mm-hmm.
You come upon the scene after the fact. You come upon, maybe our investigative game doesn't involve this particular guy, Robert or Mason Peel, as a living character, but maybe you find him maybe it's a police procedural where you find him having suicided himself,
Mm-hmm.
and you step off into the investigation from there, work backwards to figure out what happened, find the cult, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That would be kind of that was kind of the angle that I approached this as. I wanted and one way I think that it's really, I mean, it's really vibrant as an option because I mean you literally you build the clues in. I think this game could be a great opportunity. For example, if a GM is struggling for grasping for an idea for something to do, doing a game or playing through a game like this leads to inspiration, and I mean that is something that is core to what I want to help provide people by writing articles, podcasting. Is I really like kind of the horror inspiration part of it. What can I come up with? What can I encourage other people to come up with?
Sure.
Yeah. But that was my experience. I don't know if you want to. Again, we are recording, but that doesn't mean that we have to use everything here. And I don't want to give away the details of your game because I mean I think that's part of the fun.
Mm-hmm.
Is not knowing what's coming. But I mean, if there's anything you want to say with regard to the playthrough or anything like that, I'd be interested to hear your opinions, your thoughts.
So I loved reading your playthrough. Like you said, it was very short, but I appreciated how curious you got about the prompts. So with regards to the game, you roll every day or every turn, you roll a d20 and you pull a card from a deck with the face cards pulled out. And the
Mhm.
face cards you pull either every 5 turns or whenever your roll on your dice matches the card that you pulled. So if you rolled a 9 on your d20 and you pull like the 9 of hearts, then you can pull a face card. I really like how you mixed those in. I liked how like there's the one there's the one, I think it's a d20 prompt where the spouse gets very into the true crime podcast, or the character gets very into the true
Right.
crime podcast. And I liked how you switched that to be your character's wife was getting very into the true crime podcast, because I think that fit more with what the sort of story you were building. And something that I put in the notes is like if you roll the same thing again and again, just like build on it or change it in a way that makes
Mhm.
sense for your story.
Yeah.
Like something I am constantly telling people is if you see something that you think would be better in a different way, go ahead and do that. Like I'm going to a LARP convention in February and a couple of my friends have been like, well, I got this sheet that says my character screams and cries, but I'm not really comfortable with that kind of role play, and I don't know how to role play anger in a way that would fit the sheet. And I'm like, okay, well, do you know a way that you're comfortable role playing anger? And they're like, well, yeah, but it's not screaming and crying. And I'm like, okay, have you considered reaching out to the GMs and being like, hey, I don't want to, loudly scream and cry to convey anger. Can I just do this instead?
Yeah.
We get very in our heads about what we are and are not allowed to do, and this will occasionally tie back to bean soup theory if you're familiar with it.
I'm not overly familiar with it. I do kind of have in my own head a version of this, but please explain bee and soup.
Bean soup.
Bean soup. Okay, sorry. I
Yeah,
thought I
just
heard bee and soup.
no, just bean soup.
Okay.
But bean soup theory is just it comes from this recipe post where someone posted a recipe for bean soup and was flooded with comments which like, well, what if you don't like beans? What is there for me if you're posting bean soup? And like it's a recipe for bean soup. This isn't an indictment of you, but
Yeah.
there's it kind of ties to like the COVID pauses, right? Because we forget that other people are people and are dynamic and can be talked to and have
Mhm.
opinions and thoughts and would like to discuss things with you, and it's so easy to get into that personal alienation thing that we're doing. And when people aren't curious, when people aren't comfortable making those changes or asking those questions and just want to be not maybe don't even want to be, but are stuck in that freeze response. It's very stressful for me personally because that's something I've had to learn to grow out of through years of therapy and being like, no, actually you can just talk to someone and they'll be willing to work with you.
Yeah. No, there's all sorts of restrictions and things that we write into our heads. And
Mhm.
I mean, role playing is ultimately just kind of a variation of children's pretend games. I mean,
Yep.
if you were blocked by something while playing pretend on the playground, if you wanted to use the slide as part of pretend, but there was another group of kids on the slide, you just went to another toy and or you went to the sandbox instead. And
Yeah.
yeah, the if do you mind if I tell you, actually, I've never mentioned this on the podcast, but I would love to share with you an anecdote that I overheard at one point.
Please.
Okay. So this actually comes from another podcast, but it's a story about Gary Gygax.
Mhm.
And I heard this on the podcast. What was it? Cool People Who Did Cool Things.
Mhm.
And it was not specifically about Gary Gygax, but it was kind of the people who came after him. But okay, so the Gary Gygax story goes like this. He's playing the first kind of playthrough of D&D with his kids, and they are in a dungeon room where they find a giant centipede nest, and the purpose is to fight the centipede and get the treasure and all of that. The
Mhm.
kids come up with this idea that we're going to burn the centipede out of its nest. And so the rules are up there. They allow for it. I mean, the centipede's nest is flammable. They have a torch. Roles are played out. And Gygax scolds his kids afterwards because you burned out the centipede of its nest, and because of that, you didn't get the magic scroll that was inside the nest. Which leads to my personal reaction isn't bean soup when I hear that kind of situation. My personal reaction is move the scroll.
Yeah, exactly.
No one knows the scroll is there until you found it. Move the fucking scroll.
Yeah, it's not this is not difficult, and it does kind of feel being a little bean soupy to me because they didn't do the thing that you wanted them to do, and therefore they are being punished for it.
Yeah, and that's where, and this Margaret Killjoy's podcast about what was it, cool people who did cool stuff. That was the kind of goal was not kind of, or the goal of it was not to discuss D&D as it was, but D&D as it has become,
Yeah.
and how we have gone to this place of, we're much more in the it's just bean soup, you can move the damn scroll kind of
Yeah.
philosophy. We have gotten outside of our own mental prison with game rules, and
Yeah.
we're better for it now.
And that's why I actually really liked that you took the initiative in your playthrough, because you mentioned that this is like the first time you've played a solo game, and it would have been very easy to just have your guy be obsessed with true crime podcasts. And that would have made the story slightly different, and that's fine. But I really like that you took that initiative and decided, okay, it's actually Mason's spouse who's obsessed
Yeah,
with this true
who's
crime
obsessed and
podcast.
he's annoyed by it.
Yeah.
I think that, and I just, yeah, no, that just felt better for the story. It
Mm-hmm.
felt, because I mean, Mason, as I'd played him up until that point, was a very vapid kind of
He's
athletically
very
intelligent
American
individual.
Psycho.
Yeah, he's not going to be, and meanwhile, his wife had lost her job in the midst of the
Mm-hmm.
playthrough, and so I was kind of thinking about, well, what do you do when you don't have a gig? You start getting into other things. I mean, even if you are kind
Mm-hmm.
of I mean, even if you kind of are a vapid individual to begin with, you're going to find other things because you don't have your day job to go to.
Yeah.
And yeah, it came out really, again, like, it came out as a complete story. It had a beginning, middle, and end. That's what I really enjoyed about it. Is I
Mm-hmm.
felt like I had, as someone who is learning the art of writing stories, telling stories, that sort of thing, coming here from a folklorist who kind of admired storytellers
Mm-hmm.
previously, to now someone who is trying to tell his own stories, this was a very useful exercise for me.
Oh, good.
Being able to, yeah, to tell a complete story, beginning, middle, and end. And
Mm.
I don't know. I mean, it definitely comes. I should mention. I mean, I've definitely posted about this, but I mean, you and I met at this convention, this online convention panel, where I was put in the moderator seat,
Mm-hmm.
and the discussion was about tarot cards, and specifically the Kult tarot deck, but tarot kind of as a storytelling mechanism.
Yes.
And I think that this is another one of those things, these kind of storytelling tools that can really leap off, and you can create further things from it. Like, again, I'm excited to have essentially the second act involving investigators, where Mason has done something, whether it be suicide by cop, or hung himself or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to work backwards to understand his story and all the awfulness that comes with it.
What system will you be using for that?
The first thing I immediately thought of was, I'd been wanting to run some of my players through Delta Green.
Cool.
I've been wanting to educate. I've been wanting to bring Delta Green to my players.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I have I have kind of two groups of players that I'm running. We're doing a lot of Kult stuff at the moment, just because
Mm-hmm.
of playtesting and all of that. But once we step away from that, I thought Delta Green might be kind of a fun exercise, and I thought that this
Cool.
could be a space where we could do that, because it's a very contemporary, very of the moment. And the other thing that I want to do is kind of bring sort of the moment stuff to my players,
Mm-hmm.
to storytelling, because that was another place where you and I really connected, was over Tell Me I'm Worthless, the Allison Rumfit story.
Yes.
And that for me, I loved that particularly because it was very of the moment. And now a brief word on the latest publication from Delaporte Media. Hey, have you picked up a copy of Somebody Think of the Children? It's the only TTRPG horror scenario about your mom. No, not like that. Your players take on the roles of neighborhood moms in a retro 90s vampire horror scenario full of true crime inspiration, folklore, and Americana. All for the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. It's available on PDF at DriveThruRPG. Follow the link in the show notes and you'll save 60% off. That's just $2 for a unique setting, scenario, notes on further adventures, pre-generated characters, and unique art by DG Monsters and others. Follow the link and get your copy today. And now back to the episode. Let's step back if we can here, because I just want to move away from the game itself, but kind of talk about the setting a little bit. Because setting is something that I discuss a lot on this podcast. And so I want to talk about the suburban Gothic with you.
Okay.
And get your opinion on the American suburbs. So why I think that this is a very good Bear Witness is an excellent example of the suburban Gothic. The suburban Gothic is it brings the Gothic to this very kind of manicured, idealistic, utopian space, and then under the surface there are all these secrets and evil things going on. That's kind of the heart and soul of the suburban Gothic genre.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you couldn't hit the nail harder on the head if you tried, because literally under the surface, under the ground of this suburban home is this sub-basement torture dungeon in the story. So, I mean, I think that is a perfect representation of the suburban Gothic. And so I want you to tell me about how you see the suburbs. Like if I want you to, again, this is another kind of, call it advocacy, call it a soapbox moment. I want you to speak about the suburbs and how you think about the suburbs.
So I grew up far right, homeschooled, and Catholic in the suburbs of the Mid-Atlantic. And I actually do own a house, not in a subdivision or anything, but in sort of like a town suburban area. I think a lot of what I sort of see as suburban Gothic.
Let me ask you a more specific question. What unsettles you about the suburbs? Maybe talk about that.
Homeowners associations.
Okay.
But just the fact that you can have essentially a de facto junta of your subdivision, and that works. But also, so there are some really, really good suburban Gothic pieces in the TTRPG space right now. There's actually a book called Suburban Consumption of the Monstrous, which is more of a series of out of the box LARPs, which they're chamber style LARPs that are all set in suburbia, and they're phenomenal. Pelgrane Press. I can say words. Publishes it, and it's by Banana Chan and Sadia Bias, and it's phenomenal. It's very, very good. In a lot of ways, I've noticed, especially with games like Kids on Bikes or Monster of the Week does this a little bit too. Just sort of this idea that the suburbs are stuck in the 1980s and kids are, biking through the streets and people are having a beer on their lawns or whatever. It's this very sometimes suburban Gothic doesn't catch up to the sort of themes where horror is moving, but that in itself is interesting because you kind of get this idea of, oh, you're going to be forcibly stuck in this nostalgia in the suburbs because the suburbs are the place where you could hear the mower running and the dog barking and the kids playing on the playground that definitely doesn't have wasp nests or whatever. And I don't know if there's always going to be that image of the suburbs, but it is an enduring image of the suburbs, and it doesn't take very much to scratch that foil off, right? It's
Mhm.
it's like scratching a lottery ticket. It doesn't take much force. And that idea that you will be part of that script is very unsettling to me. Like, with my specific combination of traumas and mental illnesses, I get very, very anxious around what I call the idea of role forcing, which is like, if someone wants to be mad at a woman or flirt with a woman and I happen to be nearby, I immediately get stuck into that box of woman who will receive I get objectified, right?
Mhm.
And realizing that I am not immune to misogyny because I am a game designer sounds very silly because, of course, it fucking permeates the air we breathe. But realizing that, no, it will still hurt me even if it's not about me, because I happen to fit the standards for a specific box or role, very, very stressful for me. And I think that is something that is very unsettling for me about the suburban gothic is we have this idea of the suburban gothic and what that should look like, and then we have the actual suburban gothic, and those actually tend to lay over each other because we have these ideas of tropes that should be in the suburban gothic, but we also have these ideas of tropes that should be in suburbia, and we have this image of suburbia, but we also have real suburbia, and it is this constant overlapping and overlaying of aesthetic and expectation, and all of it can just be ruined in an instant. It is this very, very fragile consensus reality.
Well, I think you've picked up on two very interesting things there. I mean, the first, the whole, I mean, I actually wrote it down. That's how interested I was in it. The whole kind of scripted forced role sort of
Mhm.
experience, that kind of horror. I mean, I was going to ask you, how do you make horror out of the wrongness of suburbia? But there it is right there.
Yeah.
It is, and I mean, if we want to, I mean, we could take it back to kind of a psychological level where, I mean, what you've described for role forcing. I mean, to me, I immediately thought of the dream that any. I mean, there's a variety of dreams that people have on the regular. One of them
Mhm.
is, you're suddenly on a stage, the curtain opens, and you're expected to play the violin, but you
Yeah.
don't know how to play the violin, or maybe you're naked or something like that. But it's just like you're on stage expected to perform, and you are not in a headspace where you can perform for whatever reason. That kind of
Right.
human nightmare. But that is, I mean, what you've described with the suburbs. I mean, that human nightmare is now a community
Yep.
enforcing that standard. And I think the other thing that you've hit upon that's interesting, when I was going through kind of studying the suburbs, I was looking at a YouTuber named Echo Gecko who did some assessments, kind of some documentary assessments of suburbs and trends in suburbs. And the thing is, when you mention the 80s and the idea that, yeah, we're kind of stuck with that idea of what the suburbs is, or suburbs are, I should say, but
Mhm.
that's not what they are now.
Right.
And yeah, no, they there has been economic rise and economic decline, and mentally a lot of horror seems to be stuck kind of at that peak suburban environment. I was watching the movie Weapons not that long ago, and it
Mhm.
kind of had that same feel, but that's not the suburbs of today. The suburbs of
Yeah.
today don't have kids running around because there are no sidewalks,
Yeah.
because everybody is expected to drive, because you bubble wrap your children and keep them safe, and you don't know your neighbors and things like that. Like, that's the suburbs of today versus this idyllic kind of utopian suburb that maybe exists within gated communities.
Maybe.
But
And
you're,
also,
yeah,
in the 80s, a lot of the storytelling about the suburbs was focused in the 50s. Like,
true.
this is something that we keep posting, or posting. We're oh, trust me, we're just posting. We're posting through it. It's fine. Um but we keep overlaying this idea of what the suburbs and thus suburban gothic should be over what the suburbs are and thus what the suburban gothic can be.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It made me I immediately when you said the 80s were the 80s were the 50s, I immediately thought Stephen King
Yeah.
because that yeah, writing in the 80s about the 50s, and now we have our contemporaries, our colleagues writing in the 2020s about the 80s
Yep.
or the 90s. You know, that's you can get stuck in your particular era and not
Yes.
realize it. I want to ask you one additional question about the suburbs before we kind of
Okay.
wrap up our episode here. And that is, what is your perfect suburban monster? What is the perfect monster or horror from the suburbs? I mean, you have described a few things here, but if you had to, if you had to flesh out right now a monster that is roaming or hunting or living, layering in the suburbs, what do they look like to you? I mean, and again, monster is a very open term, so don't feel like you have to be supernatural about it. I just want to know, where's your ideal what is your ideal suburban monster?
It's the nuclear family.
Okay.
Specifically, I include several quotes from Sophie Lewis. In Bear Witness, Sophie Lewis is a nuclear family abolitionist. I don't agree with
Mhm.
her on everything, but she has some really cool points of theory that I really like. Could you actually do me a favor? If do you have your digital copy up? If not, I can read mine.
I I do. I can find it here.
So
Give me just a
I have
moment.
4 epigraphs um
Okay.
at the beginning. And the last one is Sophie Lewis, and I would like you to read that quote from Sophie Lewis for your audience. I will tell you that that quote is from a zine. It's from her zine comparing the nuclear family to a satanic death cult. I think it just might be called the Satanic Death Cult Israel. Um,
Okay.
but
Yeah, no, I'm into the
yeah.
PDF now.
Mhm.
And okay, so I have, let's see, there's okay, so I'm on page 3. There are
The
4
la
quotes. Hmm?
You're reading the last one, you're just reading the one by Sophie Lewis.
Just the last one. My suspicion is I cannot, in the end, stuff all my hurt into a sacrificial body and watch it go up in smoke.
So, specifically what she's talking about there is both parents displacing their anxiety onto their children and children then dealing with the hurt that their parents displaced onto them and putting that back on their parents, and this constant cycle of what happens in the family stays in the family, and you don't tell people about the family problems, and the only other people who you can go to about family problems are other family, and it is this constant consuming self-consuming auto-cannibalistic feed of secrets and lies and isolation. I love having an evil family in games. I love writing a terrible, horrible family. I love a family that is tearing itself apart in order to remain together. I wrote a whole like, Succession was one of my favorite TV shows in existence. Fucking, like, you wanna see my perfect monster in suburbia, take the family from Succession and make them upper middle class instead of the 1%, and just let them go, because all of that like, yeah, sure, you can keep the secrets in the family, but the burden of bearing those secrets is going to spiral out outside of the bounds of the family. It's going to bring in other difficulties. It's going to affect everyone around them like a slow creeping poison. And like it becomes a universe unto itself. And I would actually argue that a well done family drama is a cosmic horror, which is something we can talk about in another episode. And I really do want to talk about with you because I think you'll enjoy it.
I think that's a
But
great idea. Yeah.
yeah.
I definitely have
But
some thoughts that I want to share along those lines as well. Sorry to interrupt you, but
no, you're good. My perfect monster, actually, sorry. My perfect monster is any family V.C. Andrews wrote before her death.
Okay. Okay. We can definitely look through that for inspiration then. That is that is a remarkable piece of inspiration and definitely something that anyone listening to this can carry forward. I mean, look for the monstrousness within the traditional family.
Mm-hmm. And the
Yeah.
traditional family has really only been a thing ever since it could become an economic unit.
Yeah.
Like, we think of it as sort of being like a 1950s thing. It's actually a little older than that, but not by much. If you've read Caliban and the Witch by Silvia Federici, which is a Marxist analysis of the European witch hunts, something we find out is not only were they mostly not carried out by Catholics, they were mostly not carried out by church authorities. They were mostly carried out by secular authorities using a veil of religion. There were very, like, there were few clerics involved. Clerics were even persecuted because this idea of the witch hunt is not only are you trying to relegate women to reproductive labor, you're also trying to enclose lands. You're trying to take people's property. You're trying to enrich yourself by relegating these people to non-humans. And that sort of becomes a cycle that we see echoes of in suburban horror because people start closing themselves off in houses and nuclear families and plots of land and not getting to know their neighbors because their neighbors are not part of the family. Their neighbors don't need to be in their business. Their neighbors X, Y, and Z. So you have less of a community. You have the only community you can rely on, which are the people who are blood related to you and or live with. And that becomes its own sort of tension because you need more connection than just that. But
Retching becomes taking land from others,
yes.
taking possessions from others. I mean,
Mhm.
Scooby-Doo had it right from the very beginning. It was the evil real estate developer underneath the monster mask all along.
It was. Or if you want to reference a classic suburban gothic, it was Leland Palmer under the Mask of Bob all along.
Right.
Spoilers. Sorry, I know it's like 40 years old at this point.
Yeah,
30.
no,
I'm
it's
sorry,
okay.
it's 30
Big
because
fan
it's
of
a
David
it's
Lynch, so yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
Fix your
exactly. It
hearts
was
or die, baby.
excellent. Well, how about we wrap up here by you giving us an opportunity to take a look at your other work. Tell us where we can find you online. Tell us where we can find your work online or where it can be bought. Give your plugs and we'll put a bow on this interview.
Awesome. Well, you can find Bear Witness coming out in February through Plus One RPG Zine Club. You can find me at most places on the internet as Rufflejax. That's Rufflejax. I have a link tree that has all of my links, which is linktree/Rufflejax. That's linktr.ee/Rufflejax. You can find my personal website with most of my resume. I really need to update it. At jacquelynbryk.design. That's my name, .design, and I'm very excited to hear what y'all think of Bear Witness.
Awesome. Well, okay. Pick up Bear Witness when it's available in February from Plus One RPG Zine Club.
Mhm.
Jacqueline Bryk, thank you very much for joining me on the Delapore Media podcast. And I look forward to talking with you further and sharing
Thank
more
you
of
so
your
much, Stephen.
insights with. Oh, you're most welcome. Thank you. I'm going to conclude this episode with a short news segment. Firstly, I'm proud to announce Jacqueline Bryk will be returning next month to discuss the role of the family in cosmic horror narrative. She will also return at some point to discuss the challenging topic of contemporary fascism and how we can use TTRPGs to help us process and understand the political horrors that take up more and more space in our news and current events. After some effort, I've settled on a convention travel schedule for this year. I'm going to start by checking out a couple of Canadian conventions in Toronto, Breakout Con and Toronto Comic Con, which are running concurrently from Thursday, March 19th to Sunday, March 22nd. I'm also delighted to say I'll be attending the Innsmouth Literary Festival in Bedford, England this year. It's being held at the King's House in Bedford on September 19th. If you're a listener and planning to attend any of these events, reach out to me online. Finally, a little extra notice can go a long way on the internet, so please consider giving the show a brief review or rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you catch your podcasts. Thank you for listening to the Delapour Media Podcast. You can find a variety of horror gaming resources at www.delapour.media. That's Delapour spelled Delapore. Delapour Media, toward verisimilitude in tabletop role-playing. Take care.